Good evening and welcome into the number one Group of Five college football show in the world. This is the Group of Five guys, and our mission is to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs, voice that the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to be. We need your help to do that. We need you to hit the follow button on all the social media platforms at Group of Five guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Most importantly, tell your family and friends all about us, or you can download the Varsity app for free and listen to the show on there. On this episode, we're talking biggest brands in the Group of Five because, as we know, brands win championships. Hope you enjoy the show. Have you had it from somebody born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a tailgate? Doubt it.
I said, Michael Pratt has got to show up and play, and boy, did he. 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards on the ground, and another touchdown.
Projected getting drafted between the first and third round. That's incredible. The wide receivers are absolutely stacked for the Group of Five.
Yeah, I really appreciate you do for the Group of Five programs, and I think it's great. I think we should get more of this. But you guys are on the forefront of this, and
I'm thankful for this. I'm glad that you're talking about the Group of Five because I think they get overlooked.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
Jeff, I don't know what we're going to do if we start doing this in the evening. I mean, I'm not about to have a hot cup of Decker Gray coffee at 8 p.m. on a Monday night.
I mean, I absolutely will. I'm a huge afternoon coffee type of guy.
Are you now? Are you a decaf afternoon, or you just?
I have no problem. I have no problem going to sleep. You give me a cup of coffee right now, I'll be asleep by 10:30.
Well, because coffee. Well, a cup of coffee is what? Like 60 milligrams caffeine?
Yeah, maybe you get our game day dark roast, and it's probably up there about 60.
I did a fast from energy drinks in the month of January.
How's that going?
I got to tell you, man, it's so funny. Things that are good for the body are also good for the mind, the soul,
no question.
Also good for the wallet. It's amazing that I'm just too undisciplined to do that. I mean, everything. I mean, think about every single thing. You eat right. You cook at home. You cook healthy meals. Better on the wallet. Better on the gut. Better on the health. I mean, it's unbelievable that we as a people, as a being, as a species are just incapable of it. I mean, with a lot of things in life, dude, it's unbelievable.
No, I'm with you. I'm on 40-day fast at church. I hadn't had a sip of alcohol since, really the day before our Fiesta Bowl trip. So right before New Year's. So I'm 31, I'm a little over 30 days. No alcohol. Feel good. Feel great. It's incredible.
That's not bad, Jeff. I gotta, not to make this a religious show, but my buddy Elliot, who I saw on Saturday at, my mom's memorial, is on a 40-day fast.
Like just water.
Coconut water only. And he's on day, I think he probably started at January 1. He looks like he's sick, dude. Jeez. But he feels great. And they all say once you get past kind of that first few days and you start, being able to shut out your cravings and stuff like that.
72 is the longest I've ever done. I can't.
72 hours.
Just water.
No food.
Water.
Now, was that on purpose?
It was.
I think I've done a 24-hour one at one point, and I didn't, and I probably cheated on that too. But anyway, hey, we got a big show for you guys tonight. First time in a while we've done a nighttime show, trying it out, seeing what works for you guys, the listeners, the viewers. We've been going early morning, so we're going to switch it up for you guys a little bit. Got a lot of stuff coming. We interviewed new Tulsa head coach Trey Lamb last week. That'll be dropping on Wednesday. And then upcoming, we'll have new FIU head coach Willie Simmons, who, of course, Jeff and I know very well, along with about half of that staff that they got down there in Miami is former middle guys. So excited about that staff, excited to get to know them even more and some of the new guys they have. But tonight's show, we're going to talk about biggest brands in college football. Jeff's been making fun of me for about 5 years as I talk about my favorite book called Brands Win Championships. I think it is a must read for any university president, athletic director, or fan that just kind of wants to know, what the heck is wrong with my school and what are some of these ones doing correct, and vice versa. Some of the ones that are doing it correct, you find out, oh, really? It's different than what we're doing, and some of these places aren't doing it right. But we're going to talk big brands. We're going to go conference by conference, give a top 4 or 5 in each one, and then we'll wrap it up at the end with across the country. But Jeff, I'm fired up, man.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll have similar answers, but probably have a couple that might surprise a few people. But if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, hop over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. Hit the thumbs up. And we got a great live chat that goes back and forth when we've been doing our morning shows all season. And look to get some new blood in here since we're trying this afternoon slot out. Want to see what the numbers look like. Want to see what's best for everybody now that the season's over. So hop over to YouTube, hit that subscribe, hop in the live chat. There's always good stuff going back and forth. And then the last thing I want to say is, guys, we had a fan, Male Sprouse and I mean, a big time care package, Coastal Carolina fan, Rick Matthews. Want to say thank you to him. Did not have to do that. And absolutely incredible. I mean, I feel like I got the whole Coastal store in this box. I got a coffee mug, deck of cards. I got a magnet for the fridge, couple shirts, and a hat. I mean, Rick, thank you, buddy. Oh. Appreciate you, man.
Well, Jeff, and I've already done the honors of putting up a Coastal banner in my garage gym, to which I have 100% utilized this to my advantage, because now I have other people that are saying, I cannot have you having a Coastal flag in your garage without having an XYZ flag in your garage. So I am anticipating now several more flags coming to my mailbox, which this was a brilliant move by me. So shout out to Mr. Matthews for that. I'll say this, Jeff. It made up for what I believe was a little bit of a lackadaisical trip to Conway when we went.
Absolutely.
Just gonna say it. I know we had bad weather, we had rain, but we did not get to do everything we were hoping to get to do. I know we had weather. We did a show. I know there's a lot going on, but it put me right back on the Coastal bandwagon. And Steeple, if you are on by chance, we're in this thing together now, buddy. I mean, Coastal is now up there with the App States, the Georgia Southerns of the world that have just been so gracious to us along the way.
No question. I mean, this is big time care package. So thank you again, Rick. And for anybody that's watching or listening, maybe your first time on the show, we do have a hotline as well. We'll play those voicemails at the end of the show. We got one for tonight queued up. During the season, man, it's awesome. You get so much immediate emotional reactions. Yeah. We get fans that are calling right after the game, right after the team either won or lost, controversial play, whatever the case may be. Give us a call at 615-900-4286. You got a three-minute time limit, so try and keep it under there. I will piece them together depending on how many we have. But, man, hit that hotline, guys. That's some of the best content we get all season.
Jeff, did I tell you that I got volunteered to be the head coach of my kids' t-ball team?
I mean, you got to step up.
And we are the Marlins.
Attaboy.
By the way, they asked me, they were like, you got to think of a team name. I said, we don't need to think about anything, Chief. Okay. We're going to be the Marlins. We're going to be the Midland Marlins.
There you go.
So I got my roster. I got 10 kids on the roster. I already looked. I don't know. I already looked. Yeah, the roster's got the kid's name, the parent name, and then like a phone number. So I'm supposed to, start practice schedule. I already looked on Facebook to see what I'm walking into here. Try to see if I can find the parent on Facebook. See if, first of all, see if they're going to be a problem. I mean, if we're talking playing time or positions and T-ball, we're going to have a big problem. and then what I was doing is, I'm going to be honest with you. I was also checking to see what kind of athletes I had walking onto the diamond here in a couple of days. So
I can coach you up to that. I've been doing it for the last freaking Dom's 10 or going to be 10. So last 6 years. So you're going to get some toe walkers walking there thinking they can tell you how it is.
A lot of toe walkers walking around. I mean, it's
Hold your
unbelievable,
ground, buddy.
But we'll see, man. They're all 4 and 5 years old. So hopefully no parents that are taking it too serious. And then you always got to worry about the other coaches on the other teams that are going to, try to, because listen, here's the deal. If a kid makes contact with the ball, you can just tell them to keep running. And not one kid at that level is going to be able to make the throw and the catch and the tag where it needs to be. And I know that there's coaches out there that are going to be sitting there at third base, keep running. The goal is to teach them the rules here, right? And to teach them the game. So if the shortstop's got the ball and you're at first, you're not running to second in real life. You could in T-ball because he can't make that throw.
Roush, you're sounding soft now.
Are you a run up the score guy?
No, I'm not. But take your runs when you can get them because.
Oh no.
Just look. We'll have a talk. I'll run
give me a couple
it.
weeks. Let me play. Opening night is March 7th. Is opening game night. So we got a month. They told me I can practice at will. So let's see. We're gonna practice one time and
You're
see.
gonna have in the garage doing freaking farmers walks.
And, well, we're gonna start with conditioning. Any good coach does about the first 2 weeks of practice without a ball, without gloves, without a bat. So we're gonna start with that. But anyway, that's all I've got on that. Conference USA, Jeff, to me was the most difficult one.
It was hard
to go, Brant, and so I want to know first. I want to know how you went about this, and then I'll tell you how I went about this.
All right. So and I think it's important, and we probably should have done this beforehand, but I think we're on the same page here. This is the definition of a brand. Okay, I got a little definition for you, a little Webster's. Brand is a name, symbol, or design that distinguishes a product or service from its competitors. Brands are used in marketing, advertising, and business to create value for the brand and its customers. Brands are used for recognition, value creation, and communication. Key components of a brand are the name, logo, history, reputation, performance, and advertising. So when I was looking at this, I kind of tried to take like a well-rounded view of this, historical. What have they done lately? Last 5 to 10 years. How recognizable is their logo? Is their brand, honestly, to the casual fan, to somebody that's just going to see it in every market? And then I looked at, players that have moved on, that have helped build their brand and were successful in the NFL. I think all of that kind of encompasses what makes a great or the best brand. It should be, if you see that and you're not necessarily a football fan or a sports fan, that you know who that is. That's are we kind of on the same
spot on, Jeff? I'll tell you, to simplify it, I looked at two things when I did this. One, if I asked my wife or if I asked the random neighbor, hey, what's that logo? Would they know? And the second thing I did, because this is where I think it comes into play when we're talking committee and AP rankings and polls, is I looked at this. If I am the average whatever school, Power 4 school, okay? If I'm the average Maryland fan and one of these teams pops up on the schedule, do I even know that they're FBS? Okay. Do I say, oh, we got a cupcake game, home opener, cupcake game? Or do I see this team and I say, oh boy, that's going to be a tough one? That's the way I looked at it. And I ranked the teams higher that I thought where the casual fan would just look at the team and be like, oh man, that ain't no easy game. And then I also see there's some that I'm not going to have on here. I already know of one in particular, and I already know they're going to be in the mentions. that I didn't put on there just because they don't have a large enough sample size.
Mm-hmm.
They're too new. They have a brand, but their brand is for something different than the level they're at now, if that makes sense, James Madison. So let's start with Conference USA, Jeff. Liberty, right? I mean, are they?
I had them at number 2.
Number 2.
I did.
Okay. See, I had them at number 1. I think that's a well-known brand across the country right now.
And it's not, and it's, I mean, it really could be 1A, 1B, but I had Western Kentucky as number 1.
And I had them at 2.
Yeah. So I think it's 1A, 1B. I think Liberty probably gets more recognition. Obviously the Fiesta Bowl and the undefeated, regular season was huge for them, right? They were all over ESPN. They were all over the news everywhere. Not a ton of NFL players that have moved on. A couple, Rashad Jennings, Eric Green, who was drafted by the Steelers, Rookie of the Year in 1990. But really, honestly, just to be quite frank, I think them being the biggest online institution in the country is a big one. And honestly, their political affiliations, like whether you like it or not, whether you love them or hate them, that gives them brand recognition for what is things that have happened in the past. People know the University Liberty, and that's where it goes in. Like on the field matters, but other things outside matter as well. And some people say all press is good press. I don't, whether you agree with that or not, like it's a fact that all those things have factored in to pushing that brand as a recognizable brand for Conference USA.
Yeah. And for Liberty, you're right. Like their brand recognition is like, it's, I look at it, I was going through big brands, right? Like in our country, Coca-Cola, Walmart, and these things. And then I was trying to think, like, is there a brand that everybody knows, but doesn't like? You know what I mean? Cause that's where Liberty's at. You gotta, you see the McDonald's arches, right? And it's everybody's like, oh yeah, I love McDonald's. Everybody, I love Chick-fil-A, but is there a brand where everybody sees the logo and it's just like, and that's Liberty. But look, it's a brand. But I had Western Kentucky at number 2, Jeff. I hate to say this, but most schools that have a Western or Eastern or Northern, it kind of sort of lowers the outside opinion of it, right? If you're playing a quote unquote directional school, it just has a negative connotation to it.
No, I'm with you there. And this is why I had them at number 1. I think you look at what Western has done, specifically football, 11 out of the last 13 years they've been in a bowl game. That's an incredible stat. In 2015, they were ranked in the AP top 25. They had a conference championship in 2016. Men's basketball won the conference championship in 2024. That has helped. And then you look at their players that have went on to the NFL. All that has helped push their brand recognition. And then they just have a unique mascot. They have a unique logo. It's not generic.
Great point.
When it comes up, people see it. If they don't know what it is, they're going to ask about it, and they're quickly going to know that it's Western Kentucky. What is the red blob? I'm still not sure exactly what it is that they have mascot that we have to see. Well, I'm talking about their actual mascot. You know what I mean? The big, the big, whatever they call it. I forget what they call it, but it's recognizable and it's kind of out there, but it works for them. And to me, it just kind of I gave them the nod mainly because of what they've done on the field for the last, decade or so.
No, that's fair. Jeff, I'm gonna tell you, I had Middle at number 3.
I did too.
I think
maybe a bit of a homer, but
because to this day, and I can say this from personal, Middle's had a bad last couple years. Okay. I mean, last 2 years, 3 years ago, they had a terrible start to the season, had a pretty good finish, won a bowl game. Year before that, won a bowl game. But when I talk to people and I say that I graduated from Middle, they'll say something like, man, they always beat somebody big, or they always play somebody tight. And they do. And I think that has given them some brand recognition, and people know Coach Stock. They know that Coach Stock was let go. And for a school that has been a bit down for a couple of years, people still kind of know what's going on there. You look at all the times, they go and they beat what? Syracuse.
Yeah.
They
Beat Miami.
they always beat Miami, beat Georgia Tech, beat Illinois, beat Missouri, I think one year. Should have beat Missouri 2 years ago. There's a little bit of history of being another one of these quote unquote giant killers that Middle has the recognition for.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think also a lot of the teams, and let's be honest, in Conference USA, Kennesaw State,
Right.
Delaware's coming, like they're newer programs. So they're just now kind of coming on the scene. Sam Houston State's another one. So I think Middle kind of being a little bit of the older guard in Conference USA helps them in this kind of ranking system. I mean, they're, I could have put in UTEP because of the Sun Bowl and the history there, but they're leaving. So I didn't really want to give them any street cred. But I'm gonna be honest too. MTSU women's basketball is one of the top programs in the country. In the last couple of tournaments, they've made a little bit of noise, and that has helped their brand recognition from just an overall standpoint. You see that MT and you see that stupid little Pegasus.
They got to get rid of that thing.
I know. We've talked about that at nauseam.
Well, Jeff, and also again, one game or one example can take your brand to another level. Also, I know this is a football thing, but also men's basketball having the tournament run that they had, several years ago now, but where they beat Michigan State. I mean, people remember those moments. They remember where they were watching those kind of games and things like that. So, and that helps all the other sports. It just does. Now after Middle, Jeff, I went La Tech, and
I like that.
like you said, it's like we can't really put Kennesaw. You can't put. I went La Tech, and then below La Tech, I'll tell you, because I went with 5. I did put Jacksonville State, because how good Jacksonville State was this year, because of Rich Rod this year, and I know I said earlier about being new, but because they had some big wins as an FCS, that also have provided them with some recognition. But I went Liberty, Western, Middle, La Tech, Jack State.
Yeah, I can live with that. I like that.
I almost put FIU in there.
Well, I was close to having FAU in there. I'd say they're one of those, those fringe teams as well, just because they had a good run in basketball a couple of years ago. Their logo is pretty recognizable. You see FAU in the owl. But yeah, I mean, I think you're splitting hairs when you get down to La Tech, FAU, and then those schools.
Well, I'm talking FIU. FAU is American now, but with you. I'm with you on everything you just said, except for wrong conference, Jeff.
Yeah,
but I almost, and I almost put FIU just because of all the stuff they've done in the last couple of years with the Miami Vice, with the Pitbull Stadium. They've got some of that marketing being pumped in there right now. They've just, again, I know this is on and off the field. They've just been so bad.
Yeah.
That it's really hard to put
my
them.
American.
Well, we'll go to the American next, Jeff. This one's interesting to me. My number 1 was Memphis.
That's who I had.
And I think Memphis is one of those programs where they've just been good. They had a weird stint of being bad, which was right when we were in college, because I think we beat them 5 times in a row. But since then and before then, they've been really good. They're putting NFL guys out every year. They got 3 or 4 running backs in the league right now that are playing really well. Very recognizable stadium, very recognizable uniforms, logos, mascot, really big time basketball program as well. To me, Memphis, and I got news for everybody. It's going to keep being the biggest brand with all the money that they have with FedEx and corporate that they've got there.
Yeah, and for all the same reason that you just mentioned, that's why I had them number 1. You look at their on the field accomplishment. 10 out of the last 11 seasons they've been in a bowl game. Recent conference championships was 2014, 2019. So they've been fairly relevant in the last decade in that conference. But you look at their NFL talent, man, D'Angelo Williams, Calvin Austin, Isaac Bruce, Stephen Gostkowski, Jake Elliott's just some of them. Like, they've gone on and carried the Memphis brand. And whether when you go to the NFL and you have players that proudly wear that brand, it helps build it even more. You talk about the basketball program. You know, Calipari was there for a while. You had your favorite, Derrick Rose, one of the best,
one of the all-time most injury-prone players in the history of basketball, Derrick Rose. But yeah, I mean, well, now they got Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, Penny Hardaway.
Just and you know, just an iconic city too, right? And I know we had things to say negative about Beale Street in particular, but it's an iconic city in this country. And just you go, you know, BB King and the music scene and everything there, all of that plays a part of this brand. And then you have Game Day go there a couple of years ago and do Game Day on Beale Street. You make the New Year's Bowl and you play Penn State well. Then last year, I know they were bad, but you beat Florida State. And then you end the season with a big win over Tulane. Memphis, big time brand. And I got a good feeling they're going to be in this conversation at the end of this when we talk about, you know, overall. Number 2. So this was tough for me too. And I went back and forth. Number 2, I put Tulane.
So I had.
And I hope that it's not a ton of recency bias. For me, this is where I'm at with Tulane. It's the last couple years, right? Obviously. But then it's even the way back history. You know, in their SEC days, winning the SEC, you don't know. And then it's same thing. It's this iconic American city in New Orleans and culture and all of those things that make it a special place. And another thing I'll say about Tulane, logo, colors, different than anybody else. And that's something that I think plays a big part in this.
Yeah. And I think, you know, this gives them credit. I mean, you're talking about brand recognition and awareness. Tulane in 2022 was ranked in the top 50 medical research schools in the world. Like, this is a renowned medical school, and people see that logo, whether they're a sports person or not. They're going to know Tulane because of their logo and their teams, or they know a doctor or somebody that has their degree from Tulane. So I think, you know, when you're talking about building a brand, it's so much more than just one thing. It's everything aligned, from the president to the school, to the AD, to the coaches, to the community, like everything buying in, moving an entire university forward. And they were bad for a long time. But, you know, you credit Willie Fritz, what he did when he kind of helped turn that program around, and they got Summerall at the helm. I mean, you know, the Cotton Bowl was huge, beating USC a couple years ago and beating the media darling Caleb Williams. I mean, that's a big deal, right? And then you look at their top players that went to the NFL. Again, I'm going to keep hammering this. Matt Forte, Lorenzo Doss, Darnell Mooney, Tyjae Spears, Dorian Williams. Like, all these guys are preaching the brand of Tulane.
Well, and same thing with what you said about Memphis goes for Tulane too. These are guys that they didn't just make the NFL and they're on a roster. They're made the NFL. They're starters. They're getting big time, a ton of playing time. They're playing really well, and having a ton of success. They're some of the top players in the NFL. They're not just there, right? And that's where that helps carry the brand. Which, by the way, I want to go back to middle for a second. Shout out Reed Blankenship, huh?
Big time, dude.
Unbelievable. We'll talk about the Super Bowl at the end of this thing. I've got a feeling I know who we're both going with, who we're both not going with. I can tell you that much. Now, number 3, huge brands, right? But in a little bit of a different way. It was harder to do this because their brand is based on so many other things. And this is Army and Navy for me.
I had 3, 4.
And I kept them together, Army / Navy.
See, I had them 3, 4. I had Army.
I think Army edges Navy. I think, look, Army's the first one. It's not the Navy Army game. It's the Army Navy game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they are slightly above Navy when it comes to that. But look, I think these are both teams in a way, you know, especially Navy, right? You play Notre Dame every single year. So you always have at least one, you know, big time, prime time game. You get your own game. You get your own weekend. All eyes on you. CBS, the whole deal. everybody knows an Army uniform or a Navy uniform. And then on top of just their basic, black and gold or Navy and gold, their iconic ones that they do specifically for this game are I hate to keep using the word iconic, but they are iconic helmets, hand-painted helmets, the different uniform combinations. That's why I had Army and Navy just below Tulane.
Yeah, and I had them at the same spot. I mean, just the history that goes along with it. We got the chance to go to West Point for that American Championship game, and you just feel something, man. And everybody knows a family member or a friend or somebody that served in some type of capacity. So I think just the brands alone, just they're recognizable. But I'd say Army's a little bit more. When you have that the knight, on the side of a hat or something, like it's a little bit more recognizable than just the end for Navy. So that's why I had Army there. You talk about all the Hall of Famers, that both programs had. I mean, all the Heisman candidates that Army had, and Navy. I mean, it's just they've been around forever. And another reason why I gave Army the edge is they're 63-55 against Navy. So,
well, Air Force has more Commander in Chiefs wins than all of them, but not in the American Conference. Now I did this, Jeff. This was, to me, I had Army Navy kind of right there, 3A, 3B. And then I kind of had 5A, 5B. I had South Florida Bulls. And then I had East Carolina. I think for South Florida, I think it's a little bit of recent success. I think it's the run that they had in 2007, ending up as high as I think number 2 or number 3 in the BCS poll. That run they've had, some big time seasons, some big time players come through. And then for ECU, they've been a little bit down, but for ECU, they're another one with the entrance with the purple smoke. It's another color mascot logo combination that's different, right? They're not the Eagles or the Tigers or the Bulldogs, right? It's the Pirates, and they're purple. It's a different color. They pack the damn stadium. Their entrance is elite. So that I gave South Florida the edge. I think when I talked earlier about if Texas is getting ready to play one of them, I think the average SEC fan sees South Florida on the schedule and thinks that's a tougher game, no matter what, right, than ECU at this point. Now, I don't know. You ask a Clemson or an NC State or a North Carolina fan, and they might say something different. But
see, I didn't have Army Navy in one, so I had ECU at number 5. That's who I had. I think, like you said, the logo, it's specific, it's unique. The color scheme, they're really good in baseball as well. So you got people that are baseball fans. They know who ECU is. And they just pack out their games. Nobody wants to go into the ECU stadium and play a home game. I can tell you that much, especially when it's a Clemson or a NC State or one of those schools. So I had a slight edge to ECU. Chris Johnson was also just an electric back.
Yeah.
Always loved watching him. So it kind of just stuck in my mind, ECU at the 5 spot.
Well, Jeff, an elite bar scene, one of the world-renowned bars in Sup Dogs over there. So Memphis, Tulane, Army, Navy, South Florida, ECU is the way I had it. I think you had it pretty much on par with that. Now Maction, Jeff, this one, their brands, it's just like their football. It's like they're all kind of the same, dude. It's like I got my top 2, my top 3, and then I was like, boy, after that, I could go any direction. And exactly I think I could make an argument. I said this when we were there this year, and I stick by it. Toledo, to me, is the flag bearer for the MAC. I think it's the most recognizable name. Toledo Rockets, right? The blue, the yellow, like glass bowl. Almost said glass house. Shout out to Murphy Center. But it was close. Close, but I went with Toledo number 1.
No, I had the same. I mean, I think recognizable brand, you see their logo, and I think more often than not, people know that it's Toledo. And you just look at their, 12 out of the last 15 bowl appearances. That's more exposure that they're getting. Ranked 4 different times, and that's in the last 12 seasons, ranked in the AP poll. 2017, 2022 MAC champs. So recently, like, they have been atop of the MAC, and they're really good across all sports. Like, it's not just one where, like, a lot of schools predominantly really good at one. Like, Toledo competes across the board. Then you look at some of their players: Kareem Hunt, obviously Quinyon Mitchell in the Super Bowl, Lance Moore, Dante Johnson, Bruce Grodkowski, who was a Raider quarterback for a while. One of my favorites watching him. So they have names that went on and played in the NFL that carried that Toledo flag.
Where'd you go for number 2 here? Miami?
I went Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And that's very similar to Toledo, right? But it's, it's Big Ben. It's a lot of history, a lot of winning there. It's all the coaches that have been through Miami. It's Harbaugh, Schembechler, all them guys that they got all the statues out front of the stadium there. To me, is what put Miami. And I think for me, Toledo, Miami were like a pretty solid 1 and 2. And then I think my 3 is like a solid number 3. And then my 4 is like a rock, paper, scissors, put them in there. But I had Miami, and I, Oxford, what a freaking town, by the way.
Great time.
I mean, you talk about bar scene, talk about community. It's awesome. It's an awesome place. And, they've been pretty damn good the last few years, especially, but then of course they've got, Hall of Famers that have come through there.
Yeah. I had them at number 2. I think their logo's very recognizable. You see that red M, the way it's shaped. I just think more often than not, people know that's Miami of Ohio. They know that logo. They recognize it. You have their recent success, 2019, 2023 MAC champs. You talked about Big Ben. There's been other players that have gone on the NFL that have been great players. I just think it's one of the most recognizable logos out of the entire MAC.
Okay, number 3. I got a feeling we're going to be on the same page with this. I went NIU.
That's close. I had Bowling Green.
Well, see, okay, Bowling Green was my 4. Did you go NIU 4?
I had NIU 4.
Yeah, so for me, NIU, not only the win this year, right, Notre Dame, but you go back a few years with Jordan Lynch making the run to New York for the Heisman ceremony and a BCS bowl berth against Florida State. The teams in the MAC, you don't get to say that. Western Michigan made a run, but for NIU, that was a big time run and a big time season from an individual player. And then just, for what it's worth, they've been pretty damn consistent since then. So I think NIU, I think the Husky is a pretty recognizable mascot, but especially, of course, if you just see the NIU in that font, it's obviously you're going to know what it is. Yeah. And then, Bowling Green for me, I went back, you have again, obviously this year you have a guy like Harold Fannin, who, by the way, ate up the Senior Bowl, just in case anybody was curious whether he could catch or block or any of the other things that tight ends do that he's been doing his whole career. But anyway, Bowling Green for me, again, I think it's a very recognizable logo, and especially the colors. You kind of got that orangish and then the brown. Nobody's got that color, but it looks good. And then of course you have all the winning. Urban Meyer was there and had a lot of success. So this is a program. Bowling Green, to me, I have this weird way of looking at brands, Jeff. I always do this thing in my head of like, if you were, if you lived, if you grew up in South Florida and you went off to college and you came back like wearing your gear, right? Like, would people know? Like if or they were like, oh, where'd you end up going? And you said some of these schools, if you said Bowling Green, they'd be like, oh shit, good program. Like, I think that's what people would say. And there's some that they might be like, oh, where's that at? Or, oh, are they D1? Or, you know what I mean? And I think all these teams that we've talked about so far, all of these programs would kind of have that like, oh, damn, like this, good for you. You know what I mean? Like that's big time. So that's what I had. I had NIU just edging out Bowling Green. Seems like you went the other way.
Yeah, I mean, I had Bowling Green. I really had Bowling Green, NIU, and Ohio, kind of really in a similar tier, and mainly because all three of their logos are so specific and recognizable and unique.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's part to, that's why some schools rebrand, because their old logo, and, not knocking anybody's green E or maroon C, but like you see that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of context clues for people to know what that is, right? So, like Ohio Bobcats, you got the Bobcat with Ohio behind it. BG with the Falcon, the colors, like they're all very, very specific. And I think they're all unique and recognizable to people that may not be huge sports fans, but they probably know what it is. And then, all three of those teams have had recent success, right? In the last 10 years, really, have MAC championships between them. Ohio, obviously, last year. So yeah.
And I had Ohio just kind of below Bowling Green, or right on that same par. Like we said up at the top, you kind of have your top two and then everybody else. I want to say something interesting too about the MAC, Jeff. There's a program that has a very recognizable brand, but it is not a good brand. Akron.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody in the country knows Akron.
Yeah.
Problem is, they know them in the same way that they know UMass, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe that's not the best brand recognition that we could ask for. Let's move on to the Mountain West. Pretty easy number one, Boise State.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, checks all the boxes. Obviously, on the field success. Obviously, the players, but iconic helmet, logo, multiple different ones, but yeah, the blue turf. I mean, it's easily the number one brand. And then I'm going to say this. I think the average fan, if there was one team in the group of five that most Power Four fans would not want on their schedule, it's Boise State. I think, look, don't get me wrong, we're going to talk about Fresno State here in a minute. We just talked about Toledo and all these teams, and Bowling Green had Texas A&M and Penn State on the ropes. But before those games, nobody saw Bowling Green and thought they had a chance, right? So this is about brand, right? This is not about on the field. I'm not saying that, but Boise State's the one team on this entire list, Jeff, that nobody's looking at wanting to play.
Yeah.
I mean, and over the years, 20 plus years. I mean, they're up there, program wins. I mean, it's Alabama, Ohio State, Boise State. I mean, that's it.
Sprouse, this is a crazy stat. I didn't realize this. And on the field doesn't necessarily equate, like you could be great and not have a great brand, right? But winning helps. It helps certain things. They have not had a losing season, so below 500, since 1997. That's ridiculous. It's insane.
Well, what was their worst season 2 years ago when they fired the coach halfway through the season, and then Spencer Danielson takes them and wins a Mountain West championship?
I think they had maybe one year where they were 6-6. Like that's insane. So like you have the marquee wins, the 2 Fiesta Bowl appearances. Now they're the first team in the Group of 5 playoff. You look at their players that have moved on. Obviously, Genty being in the Heisman running, Jay Ajayi, George Halani, Doug Martin, Alexander Madison, Austin Pettis, Khalil Shakir has been balling out the last couple of years. I mean, they at every level, like you said, it checks the box. And I think I'm not trying to be a homer for Boise, but I know we talk about this at middle. Like Boise that's the standard for the Group of 5. I think they are the standard, and the way that they've grown their university and have struck at the right times, taking advantage of certain situations, capitalizing on their Fiesta Bowl appearances, not dropping the ball the next season. Like it all makes a difference, man. And building your brand to being one of the top in the country.
You know what else? Along with the on-field success, their most famous game, not only was it a famous big upset or whatever, it had legendary individual plays.
That's very
right?
true.
The hook and ladder, the Statue of Liberty. Like it wasn't just they beat Oklahoma. It was like they had these 3 plays, the 2-point conversion that were like everybody remembers. Down the middle, the lateral. I mean, it was in our intro for a while, right? And then he hands it off to Martin. I mean, it's like everybody knows those plays.
Yeah.
So that it's like and they've capitalized, man. They took those moments and they capitalized to now being a program. Then when it happened, it was like, oh, okay, little old Boise, big upset, congrats. And then they just built, and they've been building and building. And now it's like, oh, we didn't beat Oregon, not good. Oh, we didn't beat Penn State, like we're not happy to be there anymore. Number 2 for me in the Mountain West, I went Fresno State.
I did too.
And I think you go back, David and Derek Carr, of course, but I mean, they've went the last several years. They hadn't lost a game to anybody in the Pac-12,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is a team that I know I talked bad about teams being called the Bulldogs, but their Bulldogs a little different than the other Bulldogs, and Fresno gets after it on game day. They've got the red and white checkered end zones, brand recognition. So we talk about some of this stuff, Jeff, is like so simple, right? But it becomes tradition.
Yep.
And it becomes iconic or legendary or whatever you want to describe it as. And that to me is Fresno.
Yeah. I mean, the Red Wave, man, they've done such a great job of like building on that. You mentioned the uniqueness of the red and white checkerboard. Obviously that's not, there's other schools that have done it. But those colors, the red and white, to them and their logo, that bulldog, you see that bulldog is different. It's different than any other bulldog logo. You see that, Fresno State, their success on the field over the last really, decade or so, if not a little bit more. 3 Mountain West championships since they came into the Mountain West in 2013. You talked about Derek and David Carr, at Devontae Adams, Jake Hayner, Trent Dilfer, Ronnie Rivers, Ryan Matthews, and then one of the greatest coaches of all time, in my opinion, Jeff Tedford. So like you have iconic players, coaches, wins, championships, brand, logo, like all of it fits. It all makes sense. That's why I had them at number 2.
And also their kind of secondary logo with the green V, or the Valley, or
Valley
right?
Children's Hospital.
Yep. So very cool. Now this is where it got interesting for me, and I put Air Force at number 3. I didn't quite know where to go with it. I think there were some schools that I wanted to go with that I was like, oh, they were good a long time ago. They got some recognition, but they haven't been good in a really long time. So I went Air Force along the same lines of Army and Navy, right? They play in some really big games every year. They've had the consistent success outside of this year, of course, but just multiple double-digit win seasons. Thing that's hurting them the most is no Mountain West championships.
Yeah. I had them at number 4. Number 3, I had San Diego State.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I had San Diego State. I had them at 5. I had UNLV at 4. Now, I know what you're going to say. Okay, UNLV, they've been good for 2 years. However, this is just brand, Jeff. So UNLV, I mean, everybody knows the Rebels. And a lot of it has to do with the basketball success that they had way back in the day. And again, same thing I talked about with Tulane and New Orleans and Memphis. Vegas, man. Yeah, this is a school. This is the university in Vegas.
Yeah.
Everybody knows UNLV and a big time hospitality university. But then I had San Diego State. And I think San Diego State, I think I know where you're going to go here with some of the NFL talent that they've had come through there. Obviously, Marshall Faulk and some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, definitely those. The NFL players help, Hall of Famers, right? Some of the best to ever do it. But, man, you've had on-field success, and you've had, 2012, 2015, 2016 Mountain West champions. But their logo and their uniforms are some of they were like my favorites growing up. like just
Yeah.
so unique. And maybe this is a little childhood bias here, but like so unique. The black, the red, the Aztec like carvings or
Oh yeah,
symbols.
that's the best helmet in football.
In their helmets. Like it's so cool and so unique. And if you're a football fan, like you see that helmet, it's San Diego State, right? And then I think their Final Four basketball run in 2023 that helped them too.
Yep.
And being in San Diego, right? Like San Diego is one of the bigger cities in California. It's recognizable. Last couple of years, football hadn't been great, but 12 out of the last 15 seasons, they've been to a bowl game. So they've been doing something right. And then, you mentioned, Kirk Morrison, Matt Ariza, Ronnie Hillman, Marshall Faulk, obviously that's a given.
Did you have any thought of putting Hawaii in this mix?
I did. I thought real hard about Hawaii.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
I kind of thought you were gonna, and that's why I one of the reasons I didn't, but they probably should be in my list, man. Thinking about it now. I'm thinking about it. If you see that H, or obviously anything with any type of rainbow, right? I mean, or you think back to when they used to play at Aloha Stadium, and then of course when the Pro Bowl was there. They've lost a lot of their recognition, in my opinion. They don't play in that same stadium. The Pro Bowl's not there anymore. What's left of the Pro Bowl anyway. But then, Colt Brennan, Timmy Chang, Devon Bess.
I felt like I was being biased if I put Hawaii in there because I used to love Brennan and those teams.
Yeah, very interesting. And another one too. The Mountain West. Look, the Mountain West is a damn good conference because there's some that are. I was trying to think. I was trying to put my casual hat on. And I was thinking like, oh man, Wyoming's a pretty damn. That Cowboy's a pretty damn iconic logo. That yellow and brown, right?
Same with
but then
Spartans,
I was like,
I feel like, but there's just so many Spartans.
Yeah.
Michigan State's like you could if somebody saw them, they wouldn't probably know the difference. Like if a casual saw it.
Jeff, the Sun Belt. Let me tell you something about the Sun Belt. It ate me up inside. I'm still debating as I'm sitting here talking to you. I'm stalling a little bit just so I can decide on what I'm going to do here. Now, number one for me, easy. Marshall.
That's what I had.
Easy. Most history. Chad Pennington, Byron Leftwich, Randy Moss. I mean, you're talking, and then obviously you have a movie made about you. Yeah. You're going to have some brand recognition. And then also their green, that green color that they have, and the herd, Thundering Herd. Nobody else has called that, right? Just legendary. And I think about when they do the stadium, when they stripe the stadium with that green and white. It's pretty damn impressive. But to me, Marshall, I mean, what a get for the Sun Belt, and what a fumble from Conference USA in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for all those reasons, had them, 5 MAC championships, 1 Conference USA championship in 2014, and then obviously the Sun Belt championship last year. So you got that. You got all these iconic players that play there. And then you talk about plays, right, with Boise. You got Byron Leftwich being carried down the field. You know what I mean? Like Randy Moss and all his highlights. You have these iconic big plays, and then. The plane crash, right? I mean, that was something that was a tragedy and devastating, and almost didn't have a football program after that. So, all that creates brand recognition around the university.
I'll tell you that Byron Leftwich moment when they're carrying his linemen or carrying him down the field. I dreamed of being that one of those linemen. You know what I mean? I mean, how cool is that? Now he probably could have jogged it off. Let's be honest here. I don't know that, they needed to carry him down the field, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Who'd you have it to?
I had App State.
Who'd you have it 3?
Raging Cajuns in Louisiana.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, then I'll stick with you. I'll go App State at 2. App State on a smaller scale as Boise, arguably the biggest upset in sports history when they beat Michigan. Now, of course, that was FCS. I think, controversial take here, Jeff. You ready?
I'm ready.
I think App State suffers from they're like expected to upset somebody, but it's still always considered an upset. Is that making sense? Are you with me? Versus Boise State. Okay, Boise State goes and plays Oregon to a 3-point game, and nobody's really shocked. Nobody's really surprised at that. Boise State will go beat somebody in the Pac-12 or Big Ten or whatever, and nobody will really be super surprised about that. I think App, it's like a weird syndrome of like, not little brother. You know, are you getting what I'm trying to explain here, Jeff?
No, I get what you're saying.
Like they're still considered the little guy. Now, that brand is like the little guy that can beat the big guy anytime, any place, but they still are. If somebody loses to App State in the P4, it's going to be a huge ordeal, aka when App beat Texas A&M 2 years ago.
It looks really
huge
bad.
ordeal,
it's like a really
and
bad loss.
That fan base is ready to fire everybody because of it. Now, Kid Brewer, Boone, I mean, just Boise State's the standard on the West Coast. App State's the standard on the East Coast. I mean, student body engagement, attendance, sell out every game, no matter how good, no matter how bad you are. Just the view from inside the stadium. You go to Boone in the fall. I mean, unbelievable with the colors and the trees and everything like that.
You're starting to sound like Bill Walton. The colors.
What an odd cat, Bill Walton.
So odd. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
you were talking about the colors. It's like Bill Walton used to talk when he was smoking.
I can hear colors. Wearing a tie-dye shirt in the middle of a game.
So funny.
Yeah, but I'm with you, though. App State number 2, but I think they've got to be careful, and they've got to start building and get out of that little guy phase and get into the mix as one of the big dogs.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their you talked about all the off, field stuff. Look at their on the field stuff. 10 out of the last 11 seasons were winning seasons. 4 10+ win seasons in a tough Sun Belt conference. And then you got the Michigan win, Texas A&M, and then you got some good players that have moved on. Not Hall of Famers or stars in the NFL, but have carried that brand pretty well.
Jeff, I didn't even have Louisiana in my top 5.
You're crazy.
They don't even have their own university doesn't even understand what they're trying to do there. They can't even get their own governor to say Louisiana. They can't even get their own university to not say Louisiana Lafayette. They don't even know what their own brand is, Jeff. How can they be in there? Number 3 for me, the Troy Trojans.
It's a good one.
And now, go ahead on Louisiana. That's just, I love Louisiana. I mean, that's one of my favorite places. I've been trying to get you to go to Lafayette for years.
I know. Well, I mean, you just, again, like you take a look at these logos. You see Ragin' Cajuns that really can only be one thing. And say what you want, but they've been good on the field. You know, they haven't had any like super iconic moments. I just think they're one of the, longer tenured teams in the Sun Belt. They've been around for a while. 5 out of the last 7 Sun Belt championship games, they've been in it. Now they've only won 1, which is not great. But man, I just think when you talk about their logo, when you see those colors and you see that pepper, you think Louisiana. Yeah. I think more often than not.
I like that. And Ragin' Cajuns, obviously, it's a very unique,
specific.
But they don't even have a mascot, Jeff.
I know.
I am speaking for the Louisiana fan right now because they're angry with their athletic department and their university with this stuff. But I mean, I think when you have internally, they're not even real sure what their brand is. Now I'm with you. Very recognizable, as far as like the apostrophe after the Ragin' elite tailgate scene. Anybody that's had to go down there and play knows it's one of the toughest places to play. But I didn't have them. I had Troy at 3. For me, Troy, they have a little bit of that App State Honestly, all of the Sun Belt has a little bit of this, that App State kind of little guy syndrome. But for me, for Troy, it was pretty simple. Defensive ends, man. I
Yeah.
mean, pass rushers. I mean, it's just, and now they've got DeMarcus Ware in a, I don't even know what the commercial's for, AT&T or something.
Yeah, but yeah, Troy.
What is that? He's got his Troy uniform on.
Yeah. Chuck Carson must have set that up.
He probably did. I mean, yeah, but probably sponsored by the collective there. But yeah, for me, I mean, pass rushers, they've had the big time wins. It's just one of those programs that is consistent, been good, been in the Sun Belt for a long time, been winning in the Sun Belt for a long time. I went Trojans. Now, where'd you have Troy?
4.
Did you do a 5?
I honestly, I couldn't pick. I mean, I wanted to put James Madison there, but I just don't think that they've been around for long enough. And then you look at some of these, like I could have went Southern Miss.
That's where I went Southern. I mean, I didn't put Louisiana in, so I had Southern Miss at 4, and then I put James Madison at 5.
Yeah.
Southern Miss, yeah, it's like you ask somebody that's born in the 80s or older, they don't know all about Southern Miss. But you ask somebody a little bit younger than us, and it's going to be tough to find somebody that knows about Southern Miss. So that's kind of it's like the cutoff, right? They got brand recognition for some of the older crowd and some of that history. But it's been a while.
Yeah.
And then, James Madison, I think, give it a couple years, but they have all the ingredients for a brand recognition, right? They do the streamers, they got the purple, the Dukes. It's a different mascot logo. They sell out every damn game. So they got all the makings for a big time brand. But they just got to keep it up for a couple years, I think. I think it's pretty, I don't know how many you want to do here. I think what we need to do, Jeff, I think maybe we can get some ideas in the chat here. I think, a way to go here would be let's set up a bracket and do like a tournament style with these teams. We can let the fans vote. We'll put it on Twitter. I think your number 1 overall seed is Boise State.
No question.
Now, would you go for number 2? Where would you go? Memphis?
Yeah, I'd probably go Memphis.
I think I go Memphis at 2. I probably lean Fresno at 3.
Fresno, Marshall, probably.
Marshall,
probably 3-4 in some capacity.
I mean, I think those are your 4 1 seeds, right? If it was the NCAA tournament, that's your Boise State, Memphis, Marshall, Fresno State, and then I think your 2 seeds are Tulane, Army, Navy, maybe App. Anyway,
we'll go. We'll figure it out. We'll put a bracket.
We can do
together.
it, but I think that's for sure your top 3 or 4. Boise, Memphis, and then Fresno, Marshall are kind of right there. But look, if you ain't on this list, here's what you can do as a fan. Get engaged on social. You want to know why Liberty is involved in this? They got one of the best social media engagements in the country. We're going to get a lot of flack. The Georgia Southern fans are pretty engaged. But I don't know. It's
tough. Trying to be, I really try to be as
not be a homer.
Yeah, non-biased.
Yeah.
We've been to a lot of these places now. I think Sprouse, we're close to almost half.
Yeah.
Where we've been, to the city, to this campus, to a game.
Yeah.
Getting close.
We're getting there. So. We got to get to a couple more. We got to get out west. Got to get to the more of the MAC. And got to get to some of these newer places.
No question. We do have one voicemail, but before we do that, I want to shout out the live chat on YouTube. If you were watching on Facebook or Twitter, we always have a great YouTube live chat. And here, a great back and forth tonight. Morgan Foss was in there. Tulane fan. Christopher Sions. Stephen was in there. Ohio fan. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name. Sean O'Toole was in there. Michael Marshall fan was in the chat. My brother was in the chat. TJ, everything Texas Mike. State. And he said he liked your hat, by the way. But had a lot of great Stop the Clock was in there tonight, and Andrew Overholt was in there. Said he subscribed. Thought he wasn't. So if you're a fan listening to the show, help us out, man. Follow us on all the social media. Subscribe on YouTube. Turn the notification bell on. That way, when we go live, it'll notify you. It's a great tool. And then if you got a voicemail, man, give us a call, 615-900-4286. We'll get to the one voicemail from this past week, and we'll talk about it, and we'll get out of here.
Burf and Sprouse. You guys are right on the money all the time. I just ordered my Group of 5 red hoodie and got in the wash now. Going to break it out here pretty soon. Just wanted to see what you guys thought about the Group of 5 just completely forgetting about being beggars and trying to get into the Power 5 conference or Power 4 conferences and just sort of forming their own playoff and their own championship, almost like the NIT in basketball. You know, it's just some schools just have no chance of ever being in the Power 4. But I think that it may be appealing if people actually saw a sensible, logical championship format where there's a championship that's decided on the field, like a normal bracket, 16-team bracket, 18 bracket, whatever. And, you know, some of these teams, they're just never going to get to the money that these other teams are generating. So maybe they should chase championships instead of money. And I think to a lot of these kids who'll never play in the NFL, championship would probably be more valuable. Just thought I'd pass that by you and see what you thought. Thanks. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you buying a hoodie, supporting us, and
no doubt
calling in. What do you think? It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things. I think I think a lot of these teams have just as much of a shot to win it as a majority of the P4, right? This has kind of been my stance on this thing all the time is, you know, you could list all these teams in all the Power 4 conferences and you can go down the list and you're like, yeah, they're never going to win it. They're never going to win it. My thought is, right, I've used this example before, Middle, right? Middle goes to the tournament and beats Michigan State in the first round. They win one game in the tournament, right? And here I am talking about the tournament run that they went on. They won one game. They lost a day later to Syracuse in the second round, the round of 32. The following year, they made it to the NIT Final Four, if I'm correct, at least the Elite Eight. I remember they had a home game against Marshall, which was, I believe, a Sweet 16 game, or maybe it was the Elite Eight game. I don't quite recall. Anyway, they made an actual run in the NIT, and nobody remembers any of it. They won one game in the tournament, and we're still talking about how it built the Middle Tennessee brand here today, 13, 14 years later. I think that's my thought. That's my biggest thought. Yeah, you know, not everybody is Boise State and can even get there. But boy, if you get there, and then again, what we talk about, then you got to build on it. You get there once, you get some extra recruits. Maybe now you get some transfers to come. Maybe you get there a year or two later. Now you win a game. Okay. Build on that. Maybe you get there a year or two later. Now you win two games. Now you're in the championship game, right? So I think that's my thought on the whole thing. I wish there was a way to make the original bowl games. You kind of bring back some of that hype and that pageantry and that meaning that those had, as well as have the playoff the way that it currently is. Now, my dreamland scenario is where every conference champion makes the playoff, and then you absolutely would get there because everything would increase. Your donations would increase. Your TV revenue would increase. You'd get better ads. You'd get better TV deals. Your entire conference would elevate to catch up to that roster. But that's probably never going to happen. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, Jeff. But
no, I'm with you. I always want to have access because I think it's important. I think the value you get of making the college football playoff, I'm not ready to concede that we can't ever win it. With this day and age in NIL, if they get some transfer portal regulations in place, I think that'll help. You get some term limits on these contracts that you're signing. You're signing a contract. Be able to negotiate it like it. Put some regulations on the entirety of college football. I think it'll even the playing field a little bit. I'm fine with having something separate if the incentives are there and kids can't leave, because I think there's value in it. But I always want a shot. I do, whether that's right or wrong. I want a shot at the dance. I think we can get there, man. Boise was not. I mean, they were right there. And say what you want. You're 2 missed field goals away from being down by 4. You just scored with 6-7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like, they were right there. So,
well, and keep in mind, this is something that
about some teams are so far off. It's
right.
gonna be really hard for those teams to ever try and get in. I get it, but
well, you go and you look at a right now, you see a Boise State, and then you go and you look at a Hawaii, right? And you're like, well, yeah, Hawaii will never get there. But 20 years ago, Hawaii would have got there. It would have been in. I mean, if the layout was the way it was, and then like this is what we got to think about, right? Because everybody always uses this argument when the beginning of the season and when they first expanded to 12, everybody was like, none of these teams can ever win 4 games. That was the whole thing. And of course they can't, but nobody did. One team did. Ohio State, who is one of the bluest of all blue bloods, won 4 games. Okay. As blue as the blood of Ohio State is, they've won 6, I think, national championships ever. And that's a lot. That's a lot compared to everybody else. So I just think you got to put it in perspective of like, okay, one team out of 130 something is going to win the whole thing. And that team's going to win it once every, if it's one of the premiers. On average, they're going to win one every 20 years. Yeah. I mean, so we got to put it in perspective that like just getting there is a huge achievement. Winning a game is an even bigger. And I mean, my God, if you get to the championship and you win it one time, look, all these teams at one point in their entire program history, if there was the layout was the same as it is now, would have at least been close to making it at one point or another. Now, maybe they squandered that opportunity. Maybe they won 10 games and went to the New Orleans Bowl and squandered that opportunity. And now they're fighting to claw back into relevance. What most of these schools are doing, had an opportunity, maybe they didn't capitalize. Now their brand recognition suffers, right? Now their fans are disengaged. But the ones that do it right, the ones on this list, for the most part, are going to find themselves with a chance. And that's all you can ask for. You're telling me there's a chance.
That's it. That's all you can ask for.
Thanks for the call, though. It's a great conversation. It's a great topic. I think next week on our show, we're going to talk about our early favorites to make a run next year, which, as we know, these rosters are going to be completely different in a month, 2 months, whatever, 3 months when spring's done. But should get really fun. Jeff, real quick, who you got in the Super Bowl?
Philadelphia Eagles.
I hope so.
I'm a Raider fan, dude. So. I cannot stand the Chiefs.
You know, the Chiefs, I didn't mind. Sorry, I know we got to go. We went way over time. That's the thing about being in the evening. I ain't got nowhere to go. I got to go to work. I'm just hoping my kids are asleep by now. I don't understand it. Like, the Chiefs were fine. And then the more success that they got, the more whiny Mahomes got. It's not even, I don't even care about the Taylor Swift, Kelsey stuff anymore. I'm over that. Whatever. I'm fine with it. It seemed like they're a happy couple. Good for them. Mahomes and the flopping and the whining and
it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
LeBron James 2.0. Liked LeBron at first. There's nothing wrong with that guy.
LeBron and Luka. Now.
Yeah, wild. Hey, anyway, that's all we got for you guys tonight. Thank you for everybody that jumped on. Thank you for everybody getting in the live chat. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Stay tuned. Wednesday evening interview with new Tulsa head coach Trey Lamb. Had a really good conversation with him and about really some interesting stuff about the city of Tulsa in general. Make sure you go to all the social platforms at Group of Five Guys. Hit the follow button. Any likes, clicks, reposts, retweets, shares, any of that stuff, of course, helps. We thank you guys for watching and listening. Have a fantastic rest of the week. We're out of here.